I converted to Islam back in December of 2010. I converted through whyislam.org, which has played a pivotal role in my being a Muslim and my continuing in this lifelong journey. I am currently 20 years old. When I converted, I was 19. And my reason for converting was just how much truth was in Islam. I had grown up Christian. I had been to Trinitarian churches, Apostolic, Pentecostal, Kojic, all kinds, Baptist. I grew up in and out of church constantly. Ever since I was a young child, though, I always kind of thought, something was wrong. Like believing that God would sacrifice his only son to save the world. Like that it didn't sound right to me. Even as a child when I was growing up. Second thing was the whole concept of the Trinity. I never understood that. I do have to be honest, I just kind of all of the questions that I had growing up, I kind of just put them in you put stuff under a rug and you just leave it there, and then you go back to it when something comes up, and then you go and you're like, oh my gosh, all that stuff is under there. Well, that's kind of what I kind of did with my all of my questions that I had. Because every time I would ask a question, the preachers or the Sunday school teachers or the missionaries, somebody would get upset and they'd be like, I can't answer your question. And I couldn't understand why nobody could answer my question. I mean, if it's if it's an essential part of faith, why is it that it's something that you can't find in the Bible? Why is it that you can't find it anywhere? One thing that I really started to look at when I got older was how there's all of these different man-made doctrines. I mean, there's, you got your Kojic church who teaches holiness. You have your Apostolic church. You have Catholic. You have, Pentecostal, Kojic, all of these different kinds of denominations. I mean, there are 40 different kinds of Baptist churches just here in America. All of them claiming to have the Holy Spirit, all of them claiming to, believe in this or that. And it's really difficult when you are a child growing up and you're being taught all of these different doctrines, and it's confusing. So back in 2010, I went to a youth conference with my church, which happened to be Kojic Pentecostal, which is basically Trinitarian mostly. I went there in the hopes that God would, put his Holy Spirit on me, or something to that effect, and it just never happened. I went looking for three things. One, to have a closer relationship with God. Two, to be blessed with the Holy Spirit. And three, to have the ability of speaking in tongues. This is something that is taught amongst, all kinds of American churches, and it was just something that I really wanted because everybody else seemed to have it and I didn't have it. It was at this conference that I realized that it was it was a hoax. It's a hoax. Honestly, it really is. There are so many people who fake it a lot of the time. There's just so much corruption in the church, and it's more than that, though. When I started doing my research on Islam, I realized that Jesus was a Jew and he followed after the Jewish scriptures. He was only sent to bring back the house of Israel and re-establish their covenant, because they were lost. They weren't following the correct covenant. They had added and subtracted and all of these different things to fit their own agenda. So that's why Jesus was sent, and that made more sense to me than him coming because he wanted to die for us and all of this other hoopla that's being claimed nowadays. I really had a hard time understanding the Trinity growing up. That was something that I passed under the rug again. It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense algebraically. It doesn't make any sense arithmetic, using regular arithmetic. It doesn't make any sense to a 4-year-old child. How is it going to make sense to anybody else? People can explain it and explain it all they want, but it's never going to make sense. So one of the things that really caught my eye about Islam was the oneness of God. And this is something that is not unique to Islam. This has been something since the beginning of humanity. when it comes to the prophet Adam and the prophet Abraham, peace be upon them both. This concept of the oneness of God is in the Old Testament. It's in the New Testament. It's just hidden by a lot of other junk. And I really just appreciated, the oneness. Now, I had never intended on being Muslim. Like, the first experience I had with Muslims was actually on a Noggin show right after 9/11. I had been in like the 5th grade, and I remember it was during the month of Ramadan that this was taped, and it really just touched my heart how these people who were being blamed for this terrorist attack, they were so peaceful and so loving and so open to somebody coming to live in their home and spend time with them and understand them. So that was the first experience I had with Islam. And then as I got older, I would see Muslim girls, and I thought, wow, look at that purity, in the way that they carry themselves and the way that they wear their scarves and their modesty and things like that, which is something I didn't grow up with. I converted to Islam recently because it really hit a pivotal point. There was someone in my class in college. Actually, I'm in college now, and they had done something really derogatory towards Muslims, and I was like, wow, that's really kind of mean. And what they said was, if your religion teaches that you can kill innocent people, then I have every right to kill you. And the guy happened to be an American Marine, and I said, ooh, that's them fighting words, as we like to say. And so I did my research on Islam, and I realized that the more and more research that I did, the more and more I realized that this is what I had been believing my whole life. I just didn't know what to call it. I didn't know that Islam taught, the oneness of God. I didn't know that, Islam loves Jesus for who he really is, which is a prophet, a beloved prophet of God. And the high, standing that all of the prophets have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, So, in my search for, I wasn't even searching for a different religion. I just happened to stumble on Islam by accident, just through research. And, the more I started to question my own belief. And so I went into depth and I researched Christianity and what is the fundamental belief, what is the basis of what Christianity teaches. And, it's nothing that Christ came with. Almost nothing is being used that he had originally placed here. So I realized at that point that I'm not a Christian, and I had never was. And people will be like, yeah, well, that's why you decided to become a Muslim, because you fall for anything. Well, you know what, we are born Muslim no matter what. Like, you are born Muslim, and this God-fearingness is instilled in you from before you're even conceived. This is something that Allah gives us. So I sat down one night and I contemplated, and I said, this just seems to be the right way to go. I didn't know if I was a Christian. I didn't know if I was a Muslim. I didn't know. So I sat down and I called